Okay, so we're going to go over how to set up a song in Ableton at Relevant Church for first time use. So we've never done this song before. Step one is to grab it from multitracks is usually where we get it from 99% of the time. There's a small portion of the time we'll get it from somewhere else like loopcommunity.com or somewhere like that. Let's just assume that we're getting it from multitracks because there's a few things they give you as part of that. So if we bought the song, we download. I always try to download the original key. They give it to you. You can get it in a variation of keys above or below the original. I always like to download the original, and then we can adjust the key in Ableton later. Then you would hit download, and it would give you this zip file. Here's our zip file. So I'm assuming you've already got the folder structure set up that we use in Google Drive to sync files around for use in Ableton. And there's 3 folders in there. So the Google Drive folder, there's just an Ableton folder. And in there's 3 folders: resources, song sessions, and worship set lists. We'll get to 1 and 3 here in a second. We're just going to focus on number 2. So in here, individual song sessions, we have basically every song we've ever done in Ableton. And they're always laid out as so. So, for example, with Goodness of God, you have the title of the song, the album name, the key of the song, A flat, and then the tempo, 63 BPM. This is how Multitracks gives them to us. If we get them from somewhere else, I usually try to name it something similar to that. At the very least, have the key and some other stuff in there. So I'm just going to take our zip file from multitracks we just downloaded for this new song, Man of Sorrows, and extract it into its own new folder alongside of these other songs, making sure not to extract it like into an existing folder. So here it is alongside all the other ones. Man of Sorrows, key of F, 72 BPM. So if we go in here, multitracks kindly gives us a few things by default to work with here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So we get a default Ableton set that has some stuff pre-filled in for us that saves us a little bit of time. And it's called multitrack.als. This is always the file name. So let's open this, and it will open this set in Ableton. In this case, the set is just this one song. And this is what we'll get. We have all the instruments here and maybe some vocal tracks. And then the top is always click track, and the second from the top is always guide. So they give you an audio file that has the click in it. It's a woodblock click. They give you the guide track, which calls out the different sections of the song. You can see that's kind of getting filled out now. And then everything after that, usually percussion and drums and stuff are on top. Then it'll go bass stuff, guitars, keyboards, and vocals. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to take all the instruments and vocals and separate them out from everything else, because we're going to add a few more tracks in here in just a minute, and we want to keep all the actual music files with all the instruments and things together so that we can collapse them later. Otherwise, this is going to start to get kind of big. So I'll just click the top instrument track. In this case, it's the drums track. Hold Shift, click the last one, which is background vocals. You can either do Control G, or you can just right click and group tracks. And then in this new group we've made, so we can now collapse this, you can see it takes a lot less space. So I'm going to select the main group here I just made and rename it the name of the song, Man of Sorrows. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and save. There's a weird thing about this multitrack.als file they give you that we have open right now, is that you can't save over top of it. I'm assuming there's some kind of automatic system they use to generate this stuff. But it's using an older version of Ableton. So we need to do save as, and this is the format I will always use. So I'll do the same thing as the folder that we have up here. So I'll go song name, Man of Sorrows, dash the key dash the BPM. In this case, it's 72. And we'll save that. So now what we can do, now we have two files. We have the one we just saved it as, and then the original. We can get rid of this original. We don't need it anymore. So we have the one that we just saved. So that's what we're working in now. In the top level folder, if we go up a few levels from here, remember I showed you these three folders earlier. We have Ableton Resources. And if you go in there, there's this thing called Advanced Arrangement View Template. I'm going to open that folder, but actually in Ableton. So I'll open the sidebar. I have those three folders, the resources, the song sessions, and the worship set lists in here as like pinned folders. And I would highly, highly recommend you do that. You can do that with this add folder button. So you go add folder. So for example, pick resources and select, and that would give it to you here. Then you could pick the second one, then do it again, pick the third one. That gives you these three folders here all the time where you can actually browse these files in the little sidebar in Ableton, and that's really useful because you're going to be going back and forth to here a lot, and you don't really want to be dragging stuff out of the file explorer here. It gets a lot more confusing that way. There's actually some things that you won't be able to drag from there. You have to do it in this view. So, like I showed you a second ago, in the number one folder, Ableton Resources, which we're in right now, there's a folder called Advanced Arrangement View Template. If we expand that, then we have the actual Ableton file, the .als, that's the Ableton file, says Advanced Arrangement View Template. If we expand that, we will see all of the tracks that are inside it. So here's everything that's inside that template file. We're going to drag some of these into this song. So we want our layout to kind of match what we have here. Click, tempo, guide, dynamic guide, control, repeat, markers. These other four, add locators and then this LED stuff, are not really important. The LED stuff is for a launch pad that we sometimes use to control the tracks. It's got some bigger buttons on it. The add locators is something we used to use, which I'll explain later, but there's a keyboard shortcut for it now, so we don't really need it. So really what we're worried about is click through markers. These, what is that, 7 tracks here. Well, we already have a click track here that I showed you a second ago, this wave file that's a woodblock click. But I'm going to drag this click in anyway, underneath it. And I'll explain why. So these are going to be two different clicks. This top one that Multitracks gives us is an audio file click. It is literally just an MP3, or in this case it's a WAV file, that is just the sound of a woodblock playing. And we can't do anything to it. We can't change anything about that click. It's kind of set the way it is. I'm going to rename that one. Wave click is usually what I name this. It's also what it's named in the setlist file later. This second one that we're about to do is going to be a MIDI click. And I'll explain that in a second. Right now, let's go ahead and get the rest of this structure done. So underneath click, we have tempo. We're going to drag that in. Make sure that you don't drag this like actually on here. You want it to be over here on the track listings. So underneath the click, we have tempo. So click, tempo, click, tempo. We also have that wave click that's up here at the top. It's really, really important that we do things in this order because the Sunday set lists we drag these songs into later are going to expect this order of tracks later. So next is guide. Well, we already have the guide track, so we don't need to bring that in, so we can just completely skip it. Now, I'm just going to pick dynamic guide, hold shift, and go to markers. Remember, the markers is the last one we're worried about here. So I'm going to drag all 4 of these underneath the guide track. All right, so now we have something that very closely resembles the order here. So we have a wave click, then everything else from there on is the same. We have click, tempo, guide, dynamic guide, control, repeat, markers. Those are all of our top tracks there, and it matches the order here, so that's good. Let's save. Now I'm going to explain to you what actually goes in these things and what some of these words mean. So let's expand the click track over here back in our advanced template. And we have a bunch of time signatures here. So in this case, we need to know what the time signature of this song is. You can usually pull it up in multi-tracks. If I go to the page for Man of Sorrows, time signature is 4/4. 95% of the time for a worship song, that's what the time signature is. But if it's not, if it's 6/8, if it's 3/4, if there's something different, we need to make sure we drag in the right one, because us choosing the right click in here is what determines whether it sounds right. This is the click that we actually use in the band's ears. So I'm going to grab 4/4, the second from the top here, and put it on the click track here, right, the second one, all the way at the left, the very beginning of the song. And then what I can do, I'm going to grab the right edge of it and drag it so that it takes up the whole width of the song, just like that. So we have one single 4/4 clip. Let me show you what this actually is. It's a MIDI file. You can see all these little dots and stuff in here. This is actually the click. It's a series of notes that are being played. So here's a half note right here. Here's a quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. Here's eighth notes. Here are 16th notes. So this click is a lot more customizable. If I solo this, which means I'm just going to only listen to the click now, this is the click we're used to. If I double click the click track here, you can see down here there's a section that says Foundations. We can adjust volume of the individual notes. We can also change the click type to different sounds. We usually use number 6. That's the sound of click we use. So it's just more customizable. The other reason that we have this second duplicate click track here, and this is the one that we actually use during service, is that we can adjust the tempo of the song if we want, up a few beats, down a few beats, and this click will adjust its tempo also. The wave click can do that, but it's not quite as easy. The reason that we keep the wave click in is because if we ever need to render this whole track out to an MP3 for people to rehearse to, the wave click won't be in the file. Or the MIDI click, excuse me, will not be in the file. We'll have to turn on the wave click. But for all intents and purposes, it's just this way because this is the order of tracks that's in the Sunday set lists. And so we need to match that here so that when we drag stuff over, it all matches. So we don't have to do things one at a time. We can just grab all of our tracks and drag them over. That'll make sense in the next video. Well, we're done with the click now. The main thing we need to stop and keep in mind here is, does the time signature of the song change at any point in the middle of the song? In this case, the answer is no. It's 4/4 for the entire song. A lot of times, a good example is Battle Belongs. Let me save this real quick and just open Battle Belongs. If you look up Battle Belongs on multi-tracks, it tells you that it's in 4/4, which is mostly right, but it switches to 2/4 for one measure 3 separate times. At the very top here, I don't know if you can see, these are kind of small. We have 4/4. There's a little arrow, like a little notch here. If I zoom in on that, you can see 2/4 and then back to 4/4. Let me zoom back out. And then again here in the middle, 2/4 and 4/4. If I zoom back out and go to the end, 2/4, 4/4. It's really important that we match that. So in this case, multi-tracks will give you these. So they'll have these little time signature changes, 2/4, 4/4. They'll tell you what the time signature is. Basically, what we need to do with the click track is match that. So what I had to do in this case, I had one track of 4/4. Let me just delete this whole click track. So let's say I was doing this from scratch. I would bring in, let's go back to my arrangement view template. So I'd bring in 4/4 because it starts 4/4, right? It starts here and all the way to this little arrow. I would drag this 4/4 clip until I get to that arrow. Make sure I line it up. Yep. So right here, from here to here, I need 2/4 because it switches to 2/4 right here. So I would grab 2/4, which is a little further below here. There we go. It just so happens to fit. If it was, if this 4/4 was further out here, I would just extend it. And so now I've got another 4/4. Oops. grab that 4/4 and drag it to however long it needs to be until the next time change. All right, got that lined up, and then same thing, 2/4, and then back to 4/4. It's super important that you do this, because if you don't, then your click, which has accent beats and stuff like that, is not going to line up later. One more 2/4. The good news is we only have to do this once, the very first time we set the song up, and then we never have to do this again. And that's it. So that's how we would do it for that song. Well, let's go back to our original song, Man of Sorrows. In this case, I don't have to do that. The whole song's in 4/4, so I just have one giant 4/4 clip for the whole thing. 95% of the time, that's going to be the case. So we're done with that track. Let's move on to tempo. Let's expand tempo here in the Advanced Arrangement View template. We just need to find the right tempo. In this case, we look up here, we already named it right. It's 72 BPM. We could look this up on Multitracks or somewhere else on the internet if we weren't sure. You notice here, it gives it to you in whole number, 71, 72. There are some songs that are fractions of a beat. And if you notice here, there is no 0.5 BPMs, right? So you would drag in the closest thing. Say the song was 72.5. We would drag in 72, then double click this pink tempo clip we just dragged in. Come down here where it says BPM and then change it to 72.5 manually. In this case, we don't have to because it's a whole number 72. The next thing we need to do is turn on warp leading for this track, and I'll explain what that is in a second. So we need to click this pink tempo track we just brought in, double click it, and then down here where it says warp and then follower, we need to turn on, click the follower button to switch it to leader. What that means is this whole song will now respect whatever tempo this clip is. This is important because later on we're going to have multiple songs for a Sunday, right? We'll have this song and then a song to the right of it and then a song to the right of that. Well, each of those songs are at different tempos. And so I need a clip to tell Ableton how fast to play that song. So I need this tempo track to be the entire width of the song so it knows I play this whole song at 72 BPM. Then the next song I would have a different tempo clip that's a different number, and it would switch to that different tempo. But it's important that this says leader because otherwise all of your other tracks are not going to listen to that tempo essentially. So since this one is set to leader, I need to have the others follow it. So I'm going to select the click track up here, turn on warp. That means that now it's going to follow it. Select the guide track, turn on warp. Now I'm going to pick all the instrument tracks. I'm going to pick the first one, hold shift, pick the last one, turn on warp, and I'm done with that. Now all of these tracks are going to respect whatever this tempo clip says that its tempo is. If I change this to 80, then all of these are going to play at 80. So I'm done with the tempo track. The guide track is already done. Sometimes I'll pull in other guide cues, like maybe 4 counts, stuff like that. It comes with just like one announcement of the section of the song that you're about to go into. And that's good enough for now. Later on, if in the resources folder up here, you notice there's a folder called guide cues. I can open it up, open this English folder, song sections, and I can drag like number cues and stuff like that in here. I'm not going to do that right now. We're just going to leave it as is. Next is dynamic guide. This is the guide track. So we have 2 guide tracks. The first guide track that we just did, that Multitracks gives us a file for that has all of the cues in it, is the guide track that plays when repeat is not turned on. When we're just playing through the song, this is the guide track that plays, right? When we have repeat turned on, the dynamic guide track is what plays. So instead of telling you the section of the song that you're about to go into, say you're on a chorus and we're looping that chorus and you had a bridge after it, right? Say we were here, right? Or in this chorus, we're looping this chorus. And there's a breakdown after, but we're going to loop it. We're not going to go to the breakdown. The regular guide would say, when you get to the end of the chorus here, the regular guide would say breakdown because that's what's coming up. The dynamic guide would say chorus because we're just going to loop it. These days, I actually tend to not fill this in just because it's kind of a waste of time, unless it's for parts of the song that I really think need it. 95% of the time, we have a band leader that's talking to the band in a mic, telling them what to do. This dynamic guide track is helpful if you don't have that, just to remind people, what's coming up. But I found it gets kind of annoying because it ends up, especially when you're looping like an intro for a lot, like we do sometimes, it just says the same section of the song over and over and over again. So I tend to actually not use it a whole lot. So let's skip it for now. The control track, we don't need to do anything to yet. We'll use this track once we actually start combining multiple songs into a Sunday set list. But for now, we can skip it. Repeat is something we'll need to do something to. So let's go back to our advanced arrangement view template. Open the template itself, like we did earlier. Go to repeat. There is one little clip in here. It says repeat. We need to drag this clip onto the repeat track. Here we go. Exactly one bar before each section starts. This is the cue that if we have repeat mode on, tells Ableton to go to the previous locator. This is a locator right here. This thing that says intro, verse 1, verse 2. These vertical lines are locators. If we're playing through the intro, and if I have repeat turned on, as soon as it hits this clip here, as the playhead plays through it, it knows that it needs to go back here. And we're looping. That's all it tells it to do. So we just need to have these in the right place so that when repeat mode is on, it tells it to go back to the right spot at the right time. So the easy way to do this is just to stick this repeat clip right up against these section locators, like right to the left of it, right here. We can do that for everything. So I'm just going to Control C and Control V to paste. I'm just sticking it directly to the left of every song section, so that if we want to loop any of those song sections, it'll work. That's it. So I've got one repeat clip directly next to each locator for the song sections. Next is markers, and this is the last one we have to worry about. This is almost completely a visual thing, so that whoever's running the tracks, right now if you look at this, if these words at the top weren't here, where's the choruses, where's the bridges? You don't really know by looking. This is just a visual thing to kind of color code the sections of the song to let you know what they are. So we have our locators here, and they tell us what the sections of the song are. Verse 2, chorus, verse 3. We just want to drag in these little abbreviated clips here to match that. So this is the intro here. I'm just going to pull this onto the markers track, right? This bottom one here right before the song. Intro, verse 1. A lot of times you're going to have to expand these to make them take up the whole width. So verses are blue, choruses are green. So here's chorus, matching up with that section up there. What's this? Intro. Cool. Intros and outros are black. I might want to make that like a little more visible color, like a light gray or something later. Another chorus. I could also copy and paste these choruses. Let me actually try that. I'm going to Control C on this chorus, paste. And as long as it's the same length, okay, so this chorus is a little longer, so I need to extend it. Do the same thing on this chorus. It just lines up with these locators. Here's a breakdown. I think I have a BD for breakdown. Yep. Bridges are red. Copy this bridge. Paste. Here's verse 1 again. Actually, I think this is technically, just because I know the song, the locator says verse 1. This is actually verse 4. It doesn't do verse 1 again. Not a big deal. Again, we're really just doing this for the colors, just for ease of looking at it and knowing what we're looking at. I don't think I have one for outro, actually. So I'm just going to do maybe like interlude. Interlude's kind of a generic one. And then ending. Again, this is almost entirely just for the colors. So now I look at this, I go, okay, here's the bridges, here's 2 verses, here's a verse, here's a verse. It's just color coding. The next thing I want to do, we're almost done, is to go through here. One, if I'm in charge of the band, I need to determine which electric guitar parts are which. If you're not in charge of the band and the guitar players, then you maybe don't care about this. But for ease of putting into Planning Center later, being able to refer to this and go, okay, what is EG1? What is EG2? Like, which one's the rhythm guitar? Which one's the lead guitar? Which one is, that crazy slide guitar that's got tons of distortion that's too loud, I need to turn it down. That way when I'm looking at it here, it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just kind of clueless as to what stuff is. So I will usually come in here and listen to things. So this is all 1. Here's 2. Here's 3. Let's play a chorus. Skip forward. Here's 4. Okay, so 4 sounds like strumming chords, so I'm going to rename it EG4-R for rhythm. I'm going to say EG1 is the lead. It's got that riff at the very beginning, so EG1-L for lead. You can look at the beginning and see it's playing here the do-do-do. It's got that little signature riff, so I'm going to call it the lead. I'm not going to call EG2 anything because it barely even exists, honestly. And it's really unlikely anyone's going to ever want to play that part on stage because we've got 3 other guitar parts. So I'm just going to leave it. Let's do 3. I'm going to call this like rhythm number 2, EG3-R2. So now anytime I look at this track in the future, I know what the guitar parts are. And whenever I pull this into a Sunday set list, I know what the guitar parts are. So in my case, if I have, this is kind of the last step we want to do with this song. We want to go ahead and kind of turn on and off some tracks based on what we know we're going to have most of the time. So, we're usually going to have drums, so I can turn that off. We're going to have a bass, I can turn that off. We're going to have an acoustic, so I can turn that off. Now there's a second acoustic here, maybe I'll turn that down a little bit. We're usually going to have a lead. I'll turn that off. We're usually going to have a rhythm. I'll turn that off. The background vocals, I usually turn these way down. Let's solo them. Okay. I'm going to turn the background vocals off. If it's not like a big choir or something, if it is a choir, I'll leave it on and turn it down. If it's like specific vocal parts, I'll usually just turn them off. Especially because, for example, this song is normally male-led. If we have a female lead this song and we need to raise the key a bunch, these background vocals are going to sound like chipmunks, and we don't even want to have them in there at all. So I will usually turn off any vocal tracks and just leave them in here for reference if we're in a rehearsal and want to listen to them, something like that. That's pretty much it. So I've already kind of got a setup for, only these 5 tracks are going to be used on a Sunday. Once we get to a Sunday set list, maybe we want to go, oh, we don't have a lead player this week. Turn the lead back on. But as far as getting the song itself ready for a Sunday, that's it. So I'll see you in the next one.